Yeah, no, I think this is quite an interesting podcast for me because this is the first time that we're now recording a podcast, but it's an individual who I guess I've known about for a long time, but yeah, never spoken to before. So like, this is raw, live conversation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're just getting right into it. Yeah, it's true. We haven't had like a lot of external chat, so I think anything can fly.
It's great, but look, welcome. And I'm going to say now, we were the NFT Scoop, but welcome to the Triple Scoop podcast. Little bit of a rebrand that we're doing here. So John Lemon, welcome. The famous John Lemon. And you know, I've seen what you guys have been building for a long time. You're one of the OG NFT brands in the space. Needs no introduction, but the Doge Pound. But John, welcome. It's great to have you on.
Yeah, thank you. No, thanks for having me. I'm excited. I know we've been coordinating this for about 2 weeks or so excited to make it happen.
Absolutely. So like, look, this is the first time we've met John. You know, I've seen some of the other podcast space that you've done. Seem like a cool guy. Obviously, you've achieved a lot in Web3. But look, I'd love to understand a little bit about your background, where have you come from, and what brought you into Web3?
Yeah, so almost 32 now. I almost feel old in this space. It's kind of weird to
hey, I'm a similar age. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, it feels weird that I always feel old. So yeah, I've been running my own business for, literally since I was in college, since I was about 20. I remember even going to like startup weekends, maybe prior to that, maybe when I was a little bit younger. So the first business I ever had, I think, well, maybe the first official one was me and my friends literally were just growing huge audiences all over social media. And funny enough, it comes full circle. Our biggest focus for all these years was really just Twitter. So we owned all these huge audiences all over Twitter, like all sorts of various niches, anywhere from like pets to just relatable comedy content to almost like parody influencers that we made. Some that became quite famous. So I was in that space. I understand, I guess, influencer marketing at a really high level too. I worked with some of the biggest influencers in the world were my clients in the past as well. But having an audience, I just had to figure out from there, okay, if we have, X amount of people in this niche, what can we sell to them, or better, how do we make a business out of this? So around that same time, maybe about a year later, I got into making mobile apps first and then mobile games, kind of like simultaneously making both of them. So I had an office in Pune, India, which we made mobile apps out of, both like fairly small teams. And then I had another office in Lahore, Pakistan, where we made mobile games. Both teams were really about 5 to 6 people, so smaller teams. So, I got, and the only reason I originally did that too was like, in my thinking back in the day was, all right, well, no matter what I make, like I like doing the marketing side of things, like building products, as you know, can be, it can be kind of, it's tedious and boring. So I liked actually marketing and showing the products off, but I knew if I was ever going to build something, I needed to actually surround myself with people that were technical, that could actually make things. So, long story short, I built, apps and games combined. I built at least probably several hundred of them, just because games back then too, we were going for more of a volume. It's maybe kind of a misleading number. The gaming business model back then was you go for volume, you reskin games, you relaunch them, you make multiple portfolios. So you're making like hundreds and hundreds of games over the course of a year.
Right.
But we also made, all like hyper casual games, nothing like AAA. When it comes to making a AAA game, it's still a completely different ball game. And then made all sorts of mobile apps as well. In that case, there wasn't one particular niche that we necessarily focused on. It was just kind of what came in the door back then when I was a younger entrepreneur, like just trying to get any sort of bid that we could on some of these jobs.
Yeah.
So, made all sorts of stuff. I also have a lot of experience with these audiences, with like affiliate marketing. I've done a lot in affiliate marketing, working with brand deals, that sort of thing. And then just understanding, social media and community at a pretty high level on Twitter. On Twitter, I think right around like 40 million is what we drew. And a lot of my friends had a lot more than that.
These were, like you say, just to interject there. These were accounts that you've grown. Like you say, there was parody influencers. I guess you've made these online personas almost. And in terms of like monetization of those, from a business standpoint, were you setting up brand deals, sponsorships, that type of thing? Is that how you operated?
Yeah, it just kind of whatever made sense. And that's why we also, we made our own websites. We made some of these influencers that we'd make. We'd make a mobile game for them. We'd make mobile apps. So kind of a mix. It just was a case of what products would fit with, such and such audience. But it also gave me this ability to work on like tons of different things over the years.
Yep.
Some really silly things and some things that were quite successful. And I think like fast forward then, kind of still in that line. I always forget. I want to say somewhere between like 3 to 4 years ago. I can tell you a quick history of where the name John Lemon even came from. So John Lemon was actually a 3D character that we made for a website called D Live TV, which is like this, like a Twitch crypto alternative. So it's like Twitch, but it's a crypto based. I think it still exists today. It's not like super popular, but John Lemon was the talking lemon character there.
Okay.
So it was literally like a talking lemon because the currency there was Lino, and you could tip lemons. Lemons was one of the in-game currencies there that you could tip with. So it was a talking lemon. And even back then, it's interesting how you have all these connections. Back then, there was even a lot of people playing Axie Infinity like 3-4 years ago. That was like the main game on D Live TV when you would play any sort of ETH-based game. So it was like that and like OX Universe. And then, fast forward even more. So I always kept that name. So that's where John Lemon came from, kept that name. And then I would say fast forward even more to when NBA Top Shot launched. That's probably how I would say that's more of kind of how I got started into NFTs. Just seeing what was happening with NBA Top Shot, what was happening with some of those back there. I don't know if you remember like bonsai trees and all these weird ones that even came out before Bored Ape Yacht Club.
No.
But seeing kind of how the space was evolving back then, it's like, oh, well, I understand how to grow a community, and, I still understand how to make, like assets and design and artwork and that sort of stuff. Still have those creative people that work for me. So let's give it a shot. And that's, maybe I'll stop there for now, but that's, that's
nice.
kind of like the evolution of where I came from and how we got it.
Well, I'm glad I didn't have to embarrass myself and ask, okay, is your name really John Lemon? Because I wasn't sure, but you've clarified that.
Yeah.
Nice.
No, I didn't put in here, John Lemon / Kyle.
Exactly. Look, it's super interesting background, and the roots that have all led you to this point, all absolutely make sense. An amalgamation of skills and experiences which have led, and look, the Doge Pound, massively successful collection, from, if anyone looking at it as a collection as to why one would be deemed successful, Doge Pound definitely ticks those boxes. It was actually, I said, it's funny when we look back through our messages, right? When we first connect on Discord, it was one of my first NFTs. So you ended up launching the Doge Pound. Obviously you've made it clear, you've got all these skills to be able to actually do that. Was the team made up of a team of individuals that you already had worked with in the past? How did that come around? It was around August 2021, was it, or just before?
Yeah, I think the first mint was early June was like the first official mint, and then we had been working on it for probably 3 months prior to that or so. Yeah. So we're getting close to like 2 years that we, I guess, like have been working on Doge Pound or started the idea of it. But no, like I would still say it's a little bit of a struggle for me. I'm not like super, making all these games and stuff. I'm technical to an extent. So I understand how to talk and get things done. I understand, front end, back end, how it all works. But I'm not super technical. And like to that point, I wasn't someone that was going to go out there and, write the smart contract or do all these things. So the guy that actually made the smart contract that was a co-founder with me, I didn't know him prior to any of this stuff. He was someone that I met through the space, and it was a little bit scary in the sense. I mean, I had worked with him a little bit prior to this, but it was a little bit scary. Like, okay, like if we actually go and raise X amount of money, is this guy actually, he's the one that's deploying the smart contract that kind of like owns it back in the day. This could be kind of an interesting scenario. I mean, luckily, nothing happened. He's still a good friend of mine today, but yeah, so it's yes and no. Some of the creative people were already working for me, but then some of the people that ended up helping on the blockchain side and with some of the technical things, they were just new people, really, that I hadn't had much experience with. So it was a little bit scary. I think that's kind of a scary part for a lot of people, even to this day, like launching their collections, that the blockchain side of it and making sure it's all safe. And you got all these scams going on, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw, recently saw the scandal with regards to, I think it was CoffeeZilla who outed Logan Paul, and I watched some of the detail on that, and it was like the guy who actually owned the contract, was holding them to ransom almost. But look, I mean, that must have been a crazy period, because that really was that PFP mania phase that you guys like just absolutely, rode the cusp of that wave on. Like, just talk to me a little bit about that, what it was like launching a project, with all of that noise, excitement, euphoria going on around you. It must have been pretty crazy.
Yeah, it was crazy. But, even when we launched Doge Pound 2, it's like we were actually kind of there before. It seemed crazy when we were launching. Like, I felt like we were so far behind when we were launching the Doge Pound.
Wow.
And then it's like, no, yeah, I felt like, really far behind. And I've talked about this in other like interviews too. There wasn't really any big dog projects at the time. So that was my original thought. Like, let's make a dog project. Let's involve some of the Dogecoin community. They're a fun community. I kind of like what they stand for in some instances. And that was basically it. But then, prior to Doge Pound launching, then the Bored Ape Kennel Club came out like right before Doge Pound. I'm like, dang it, another dog project. And then Slum Doges came out. I've talked to those guys a little bit since. They came out, very similar artwork, same sort of theme. There's even some big collectors that are like, well, I'm not going to mint Doge Pound. I just minted Slum Doge. But then fast forward, it's like things, maybe like 2-3 months after Doge Pound, then I think in my opinion, that's when it got like really, really crazy. There wasn't a ton of projects launching when we launched. It still felt very competitive and rushed, but then after that, like kind of maybe later in 2021, that's when it felt like it was like every single day there was another 10 projects launching. It was just, it's crazy. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Nice. And then obviously, the collection's grown arm and legs since there's been a number of airdrops, projects coming on top of that. You can sort of share with me a little bit about, what's going on with that, how active that side of the project is. But then the game studio, I believe, came out on the back end of that as well. Now, it makes a lot of sense based on your background now, right? So in terms of where the Doge Pound was at that time or where it is today, like, how's it evolved? What else are you guys doing?
Yeah, I feel like we went from, again, like roadmaps back then are really like very simple. I always laugh. I feel like I always have to say this because it's very funny. Like back in the day, roadmaps, I remember roadmaps, like achievements being like, once you hit 50 or 25%, we're setting up a Discord, or like we're making t-shirts. Like those were like big milestones back then. Which is like, if you put that in a roadmap today, people would just like eat you alive, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? The evolution of Doge Pound, we went from, being that, let's just say this basic NFT project, so to speak, pretty small roadmap of what we want to do. Then you outgrow that really fast and you're trying to figure out what's next. So we went from, launching our companion collection, which was the puppies. And then a big value proposition after that was we became, I don't know, I think really like maybe the first like bigger collection to do like officially do like a launch pad where we were making projects for other people. So that was, that was a big value proposition for people. I figured like, okay, I still know how to make things and get things done. Let's do that. And that was probably the peak of Doge Pound. When we were a launch pad and, launching Journey Club, and we did, the silly one, D's Nuts, and we were doing Wolf of Wall Street, and we helped Tokyo with their artwork. And then after that is when we talked about doing games. And I still like the idea to this day, but we've kind of moved away from it now. The idea back then was that we could make all these little like play-to-earn games, more like hyper casual style that I was used to making, and then grow a token around that. So you're kind of like something like Gallo. In the end, it didn't really work out. I think I still like the concept. I still think it is a good concept, but kind of like seeing where gaming was shifting and seeing like our resources and what we had in front of us and what it was going to cost to build all these games, it just felt like it was maybe a little bit of a stretch at the time. So now coming full circle, we've just gotten back to really focusing on the brand and what Doge Pound stands for. And, it's always been about dogs, with the Doge Pound shelter and everything we do with the brand. We really want to get into the dog niche and be everything inclusive for dogs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I remember that, that Launchpad piece. And, I think, if I'm right in saying this, so I know one that I took advantage of. I think by owning a Doge Pound NFT, I was able to mint a Journey Club NFT. Would that have been correct?
3,000 people were able to get a Journey Club NFT at the time.
Yeah,
and that was probably like the height of the Doge Pound.
And it's quite nostalgic. All that, it's weird, like saying nostalgic a few years ago, but genuinely, when you first get into NFT, it feels like a lifetime ago, right? And for that moment, and being part of the Doge Pound for me personally, it was that captivating time that you're really drawn in, and look, you end up getting drawn in by one or two few projects. And then you end up learning, and you end up building relationships in space, and then you end up launching a podcast and a newsletter, and like that's so the sentimental value it holds quite a lot to me. Projects like the Doge Pound, because it was one of a few at the time that really brought me in. Great time there. And okay, so fast forward, we've got the Doge Pound shelter, great stuff. I love dogs. We've got a cockapoo myself, which I don't know if you have those. I don't know if they're a popular breed. Are you based in America?
Yeah. I'm in North Carolina. We have, technically it's my girlfriend's dog, but he's a golden doodle. So he's poodle crosses. They're great dogs, right? So energetic. Really intelligent as well. Our dog got himself in trouble recently because he loves the retriever side of him. He loves to eat everything. So he doesn't have any sort of sense of what he should or shouldn't be eating. So it's still
interesting.
Still a puppy? He's almost 3, so he's kind of like behaves like a puppy still. But
yeah. Nice. So so for the listeners here today, just share a little bit about, because look, I'd say 70% of the world's population love dogs, right? So in terms of the Doge Pound shelter, talk a little bit about that initiative and what it's actually doing.
Yeah, so we're taking some of our royalty profits and we're putting that into the Doge Pound shelter. So that's some ongoing way that we try and help the shelter. Then we also took some of our initial funds that we made from the mint and put it into the shelter as well. That's really what got the Doge Pound shelter started. And we ended up partnering up with another charity, another organization in Tanzania. And really it all just came to fruition from a community member at the time. We were trying to figure out, we want to do something for dogs. Does that just mean we're going to write a check and be done with it? Or, what's something more engaging we could do? And we just happened to meet this guy that was owning another charity. His real name is John. We met John. And was just really comfortable with him. He's still really good guy to this day. Like somebody that I knew, okay, if we're sending X amount of money, like I know it's going to go to the right places. We're going to actually be able to do a lot with it. So we bought land in Tanzania, started, developed the land, started developing all the buildings, all the infrastructure there, hired the employees, moved some of the dogs over, and then started rescuing dogs. And that's, it's become a full-on operating dog shelter to this day. And it's something that I want to be like a core part of the brand long-term forever. We're, actually trying to get other brands involved, like Seedify gave an investments. We're talking to other dog brands. We want to keep growing it. It's almost become I don't know. I hate to call it like a side business. We don't even make any money off it. We're not anywhere close to the point where we could even do that or take money out from marketing. But long term, I would love for that to continue to grow, or at least, as that grows or the extension of Doge Pound grows, that we're always helping dogs in some sort of way. I could see maybe in the future, ideally, if things go well, through some of our products that we're helping more dogs as well. But yeah, well, for now we have to, keep that dog shelter in a good place and continue to put all of our efforts there, but hopefully we can continue to expand. So
very good. Very commendable work. You need to get Elon to write his checkbook then, I think.
I know, right? I spoke with, I think it'd kind of be a fun idea too. Like, I don't necessarily think it has to just be called Doge Pound Shelter. I've been talking to some other Doge projects. It'd be cool if it was just called like a Doge shelter, and we could get like a greater community to start to like donate and get behind this idea of Doge the meme is huge, and the thing is, it's everyone loves the memes and the humor behind it, but it all started from a dog. Like, it's literally about a dog. That's a real dog.
How's that dog getting on? Like, I heard, did that dog sadly pass?
I think the dog is still okay, but so the dog's name is Kabosu. It's getting, I think she's getting quite old. I don't know for sure how old she is now. So I know she's had some health problems. We did one campaign with some other Dogecoin people where we raised money to make a statue for Kabosu in her hometown in Japan, which is kind of cool. But again, I think she would love it too. Like, I can't say we really talked to Kabosu's owner too much, but it sounds like she'd be open to the idea of like starting some sort of like greater dog campaign as well. I think it'd be a lot of fun, right?
I take it, yeah, definitely. I completely agree. And just back on the point, like in terms of some of the bigger players in the space who love the Doge meme, Elon Musk being one of the biggest, right? Like, have you being the Doge Pound, and obviously, he's very, I wouldn't say he's active in the crypto space, but he has big influence and he likes to cast his hand and stir things up whenever he wants to. Have you, as the Doge Pounder yourself, have you ever had any interaction with him directly on Twitter at all?
No, I don't. Not yet. We're hoping. I could see it happening someday, right? Maybe who knows? Maybe it takes years, but I would think someday, somehow, it might happen. And we still try to like play into the fun of it too. We tag him every once in a while and respond to his tweets, and
yeah.
We do what we can. We do what we can, but no, he hasn't really ever. Even it's funny. Even the really crappy trailer video that we made for Doge Pound, like way back in the day, it was. I don't know if you remember seeing it or not, but it was revolved around like this Professor Elon, taking these dogs into space and. We're starting this new evolution of like this dog species. I don't know. We'd have to dig it up and find it, but
yeah, it's always worth a repost, right? See if you can get his attention. You never know. You never know when he's gonna respond. But no, super interesting, and you've achieved a lot. And I think launching collections these days, I see it all the time. I think you guys and a few other projects were, and genuinely, like, I know you're probably. Yeah, you like you say, you were saying, oh, we were behind and that, but no, like, honestly, from an outside viewer and a member of the community at the time, the Doge Pound, as well as those at the time, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, like, of course they've gone on to do ridiculously big and wild things, but the Doge Pound was well in that collection of pioneers in those space. So, like, that achievement, in my sense, is not to be sniffed at in any way. And then going on to do good things like you are now with the Doge Pound Shelter, it's great because look, we've seen so many pump and dump rugs out there, and you guys clearly have a lot of integrity in terms of what you're doing. So, hats off to everything there. It'd be interesting just to, explore, because, you obviously really credible individual. You've got a lot of experience in tech, building audience. Well, I know you said you weren't a techie, but you've built a lot of stuff, right? But, building audiences, marketing, and I can see you're involved in some other projects. I think, well, you can go ahead and explain, but I can see Hodl Perks, Mintpad Co. I'd love to understand a little bit about, how they're going. Are they related to Doge Pound? Are they completely separate? Yeah, I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah. So Mintpad, I guess, would be the more recent one that we've made. It's a tool that we made. There's a lot of tools that do this, but I think ours is pretty comprehensive and competitive. It's a no-code solution for creators if they want to launch and deploy on many chains at once. So we support, I think, 7 chains at the moment, and we're looking to onboard a couple more EVM chains, hopefully here soon. How it fits in. So I do everything that we build in some sort of way. So it has a separate team, separate identity, similar to HODL Perks, separate team. But everything that we build, we try and bake in a way that can help Doge Pound long term. I wouldn't say that MintPad is necessarily helping Doge Pound right now because it just got started and it's not really generating revenue. And we'll have to see if the business model actually works. But the plan is, and the promise that I'll always make to Doge Pound is, if MintPad can grow, we want to always give back a portion of that revenue back to the DAO in some sort of way. So it's a little bit premature just because, again, like MintPad's still, and it literally launched, it's technically still in beta, but it literally launched within the last 2 months or so. But that's the plan, is as that makes revenue, can hopefully be another revenue source that can support the Doge Pound ecosystem long term. HODL Perks is similar in that sense too. We're not giving revenue from HODL Perks back to Doge Pound, but HODL Perks is all, the original idea from it was from a Doge Pound community member. I invested into it, helped him grow it a little bit. It's a separate team, but it's all about perks and, taking your NFTs and you HODL them and getting some sort of reward or perk from it. And Doge Pound will always have the most exclusive rewards from HODL Perks as well. So it's everything we do, we try and make sure it helps Doge Pound. Unfortunately, it's every business, we're all like startup trying to compete, right, advance and survive.
Of course.
But I think some of these can definitely play out over time and be, at least some decent extra revenue for Doge Pound and the ecosystem. So that's really the plan. Everything that we do, we try to incorporate some sort of way that it could help Doge Pound. And I don't see any reason why we wouldn't do that. To me, it seems silly. Like I hope from years from now, like anything I build, I might as well, like, why wouldn't I give Doge Pound holders some sort of incentive or some sort of extra perk from it? So I try to always keep that in mind. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And how would you, because obviously, you're as a Web3 builder at the moment, you've achieved, in my mind, a lot. You're now building other products. What is the most challenging thing you feel as an entrepreneur operating in Web3 today? What are some of the challenges you face, you have to think about with this ever-changing landscape?
I think it's that. I think maybe my own fault is I do love to build and do all sorts of things at once. So it's, it's been a learning case for me, even like with that, like us talking about where Doge Pound has come. It's being the launch pad to realize, that's maybe not sustainable. It's not something that will work long term, to maybe trying to do games. And now I think coming full circle to where we're at now makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think the struggle, it's a struggle, but it's also like a big opportunity in the space, in the sense that no one like entirely knows for sure where everything is moving. And we're like, talk about metaverse. I feel like it's still a very like open-ended topic about how people are going to use the metaverse and how they're going to interact there. And Doge Pound too, like trying to figure out how exactly we fit in. I think I have a pretty good vision for it, but it's going to be interesting to see even like a year from now, like, okay, did that actually make sense? But I don't know. I think that's the biggest struggle for me, is just staying like laser focused on what you're trying to build and not get distracted by all the shiny objects that are always popping up in the space. Same thing that as a consumer, you'd face the same thing too. Like, oh, we got a new project, new tech, now we got Bitcoin NFTs, you got all these sort of things. It's like, is it really worth our time to do that? Or is it just a distraction from like a long-term bigger goal of what we're trying to accomplish? So maybe for me personally, that, yeah.
What do you think of Ordinals? I think there was a bit of a connection there. What do you think of Ordinals? It's something that I get the premise of them, but I guess a lot of collections now are like, oh, we need to mint our collection on Ordinals, right? And I don't know whether realistically it's a cash play, because when you see collections doing it, we saw obviously the punks, and the punks kind of make sense, right? They kind of fit into being inscribed in Bitcoin in a way. Do you know what I mean? Whereas like, these brand new collections that have popped up, they're like, oh, we're going to do it on Ordinals. Like, I don't know. it'd be interesting to get your take on it. Like, I really didn't explore that hype in any way from a personal investor perspective. I never really, I understood it, but I didn't dive in head first like I did, I guess, in the PFP, NFT mania and things. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So having gotten into it now and like kind of understanding better what it takes to actually inscribe these things and how it works, I would say I'm less excited about it right now. I think, you have all these people that talk around, like projects throw around like it's historic and all these things. And it's like, even the stuff that was early on Ethereum, it's not really historic. How can you say it's historic if we literally just started, right? I mean, I guess, fast forward maybe 10 years from now, like maybe there's something about that, but I don't think anyone's going to go back and say something's historic when you are the, 10,000th person to inscribe something on Bitcoin. So I think, hopefully, I do hope it advances. Like, I think it would be good if Bitcoin NFTs would advance, but seeing like what Ordinals has built so far, it's just it's like taking 100 steps backwards. It's so limited to what you can do. It's like 100 steps backward from even what Ethereum even started with as NFTs. So I would say I lean more on the skeptical side. I think we'll still do some things for fun there. I don't really want to do anything that's a paid mint, but I think it'd be fun just for consumers to kind of be able to mint things and understand how it works. But it is, I would say I kind of lean more to the skeptical side, just seeing how it works right now and how difficult it is. Ethereum NFTs isn't necessarily like, it's getting to the point where it's consumer friendly, but that is like, I mean, you have to, if you want to trade people, you got to go into Discord. You can't even inscribe things yourself. It costs, I'll give you one last direct example. I wanted to do some, I don't know if you call them GIFs or GIFs. I never know which one to say.
GIF, yeah.
But if you want to put one GIF on Ordinals and inscribe that, and this is after I was trying to compress the file as much as we could, it was still going to cost us just for one GIF about $200. Like that's how is that? That's not realistic. Like how can anybody use that?
No, I agree, and no, I completely agree. And I think leave Bitcoin alone. Like it's kind of it is what it is. Look, what do they call it? Is it stupid gold rock or whatever, or stupid orange rock? Like, look, it's what brought me into the space. And genuinely, I was a Bitcoin maxi for like 3 years straight, and that was to my detriment. Like, I actually refused anything else because I was in that sphere on crypto Twitter of like everything's shit apart from Bitcoin, including Ethereum. Now I'm like very much, I've learned, you never marry a chain, you never, and you've got to be open. But Bitcoin is insanely good at what it does. It's slow, it's methodical, it's a store of value. Let it be. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the grandfather. It's the rock that everything started on. Like, you don't need to fuck with it.
Exactly. Right. Oh, exactly. I agree with you. It's interesting once you get it. I was kind of the same way. Like, you always, I guess I've been in crypto for, I don't know, probably at least 5 or 6 years. Like, just as an investor, like watching, probably 6 years or so. Same thing. You always see Ethereum is always the second biggest one for the most part, and what's been happening. But then you get into like actually building stuff, and you get into the communities, and it's like everyone's just building on Ethereum. Like nobody does anything with Bitcoin, which is good and bad, like you said. But I think to your point, it's like let it be what it is. I still like that people are trying to advance it and be innovative with it, but For NFTs and for like these use cases, I would say I lean more to the skeptical side of what it's going to be able to do. But
it's interesting, and it's. I remember investing in a project a while back. I think it was called Sovereign, and it was meant to be like the DeFi. Have you heard of this Sovereign? And it's SOVRYN, and it's like the DeFi. It was meant to be DeFi on Bitcoin, and they were using like. I forget. Anyway, absolute chaos to work with, honestly. And like, because for people coming into the space, right? Like you say, Ethereum, if you just want to buy on an exchange, it's pretty user friendly. If you want to use MetaMask, okay, you still need to coach them how to do it. If you want to use DeFi products on ETH, God, it can be a nightmare for people. But yeah, Bitcoin, it wasn't great. So I like to keep it as it is. If I'm gonna buy Bitcoin, I'm gonna buy it. I'm gonna hold it. It's gonna go in my ledger. But yeah, no, Ordinals, I guess, is interesting. We'll see how that space develops. But yeah, I kind of wonder if it's going to be a nothing burger or it's going to be something. Who knows? But I have learned, don't ignore stuff. You've always got to know at least what's going on.
Yeah. I think like you said, like almost like be curious, but also be cautious. Like I wouldn't be out there, throwing one Bitcoin at, these random projects that are popping up, because it's like the same thing with ETH too. It's like, you had these people that said they're historic because they were super early, but then again, there's no value to it. You still need someone to build out the brand in most cases. There's only like a few exceptions where you can just say like CryptoPunks. There's not really much advancement from the IP side, but it has kind of held this historic like figure, but it's also because it's been traded a ton too, right? It's like people have gave it tons and tons of validation. So I don't know. I would be cautious of buying some of these random things. Try not to buy the hype. I think you can wait around and see like, okay, this Bitcoin NFT is actually sticking around. Like, people are continuously buying it. Then you could probably hop in and still be okay. But yeah, I probably wouldn't risk it otherwise.
Yeah, there's always a next thing. That's one thing I've learned. Anyone listening today, guys, you've heard it here from myself and John Lemon himself. There's always gonna be something else. Don't drink the Kool-Aid immediately. Let it play out. Let other people get wrecked on that one. Don't. But yeah. So right, how do you feel that the landscape has changed since you got involved? Like, where do you think the puck is moving now for NFTs? I personally think it's very difficult for new PFP projects just to spring up and go into space, because I think you had the hype mania behind, which accelerated and propelled and built communities faster. But now I think it's very difficult for just a PFP to come up. You kind of see less of them. There are different things going on. Like, where do you think the puck's moving in terms of, NFTs that are, being listed, being minted, and then being traded?
Yeah. I think overall it's been good. Like, we've kind of like weeded out. You probably won't see a lot of people, that are, like you said, like back in the day in the craze, it's like any sort of animal PFP was popping up like every single day, right? I think it's good, right? Like, we've weeded out a lot of people that don't want to be here for the right reasons. It is very hard to launch right now. I would say you don't really see a lot of projects come out right now that are, quote unquote successful by the standards that a lot of people like deem on them, right? Like increasing the floor price and doing things. Some of that stuff I think is like kind of sucks for people too, because there is a lot of good people that are trying to enter the space and they might have good intentions, but they won't see the light of day because people only view success as, based on these couple metrics. I think some of that's a little bit unfair. I hope that changes over time as well. But overall, I think, the space has just become a lot more competitive, and I think for good, right? I always tell people too, like, honestly, if Doge Pound launched today, how we did 2 years ago, there's no way. Like, it would be a huge failure. Fortunately, we've had 2 years to continue to like build a community and do things and build credibility, but yeah, we could never launch Doge Pound, today like we did back then. There's no way. So I like where it's heading. I think there's like some of that stuff, some of the things I don't necessarily love about the market, because I think there is people that are building real products and doing real things. And sometimes it does come down to that. Like, do you have big collectors? Do you have people that are pumping your floor price? But I think if you can stick to it, and the other thing I always say too, if you can, stick to it, don't give up. It's like anything else in life, especially with entrepreneurship. And then just be very clear for why, what is the reason why someone would want to buy your NFT or buy your product, or like, what are you bringing to the table? Like, the more clear that can be, there's less of this guessing game about, why am I holding this NFT or this one? Like, it's got to be very, very clear to people. But overall, I like the direction that the space is headed, I would say.
For sure. And do you think, because we obviously saw last year and even like a bit of this year, we've seen big enterprises, big brands, move into the space. Do we think, or should I say, do you think that we're going to see a continuation of that? Because a lot of them were saying we're building a metaverse or we're doing a PFP. It was kind of just a duplication of what the Web3 natives did, right? But I'm thinking, do you think that brands and enterprises are going to adopt this technology moving forward to build on top of their businesses, or do you think that side of it's going to fizzle out?
Yeah, no, I think we'll see even more adoption of it over time. It just might not look like exactly. I don't think all the use cases are going to necessarily look like these, like all of us going to a website and like hurrying to mint something. Like it's not going to be like all this like super like degen-y activities. It's going to be more like, I think back like what like Reddit did, like where it's doesn't even like feel like you're minting an NFT, you're holding a collectible, but you are. I would love to see a big game publisher, incorporate NFTs into their game, and maybe people don't even realize it, but they actually have true ownership of like assets that they're trading and playing with in the game. And so I think it's going to look more like, it's not going to be such a like a convoluted process and very confusing, because that's never going to work, right? Because I still view us, the people that are in Web3 space right now, as like this 1-2% of people. And I think the people that are going to win and like the solutions that are going to win are going to be the ones that are just like super dumbed down, super easy to understand, but the technology behind it is still more or less what we're using today. Because blockchain, there is a lot of cool use cases for it, but it's too confusing for most consumers. So, that kind of falls in line with what we're trying to do at Doge Pound as well. Is like when we extend our ecosystem, we try and get more people in. How do we do it so anyone can understand it? Because it is too confusing.
Yeah.
You even think about the amount of people, most people are just figuring out how to like go on to like here, let's use in the US, for example, most people are just figuring out now, like how to even buy Bitcoin or Ethereum, like much less how are they going to know how to like download a MetaMask and go on here and mint these things and do all these like crazy interactions. That's not what a consumer is going to look like, at least not anytime in the near future. So the solutions just have to be way, way easier, a lot less barriers. And whoever can do that and incorporate that with a good business model and a good team and all that stuff, then I think those people will win. But yeah. Last thing I will say too is I don't think you necessarily have to take that dramatic approach either. I still think there's always going to be these communities that, like we talk about niches and communities, there's always going to be these people that are the hardcore people, right? The people that they are doing this and they love the hardcore part of it. And that's what Web3 is, which is great. But for someone like Doge Pound or maybe a business that's more consumer centric or IP based, it's kind of a step that we have to more so acknowledge and respect more. Like, how do we start to get into a bigger audience? So I think it also depends on the products and the business too.
Absolutely, and I think an interesting project as well who are trying to use their IP and brand to reach the masses is Pudgy Penguins. I saw you were a partner listed as them, with them. Like, do you want to explain a little bit about how that works?
Well, yeah. So a lot of people always ask me that question. Like, what does that mean? Like a partner? I don't know how to say it on my profile, but when the ownership of Pudgy Penguins got bought out by Luca and these guys, I invested some money. So I'm just a small part owner in Pudgy Penguins. I can't say that I really, lead the team that much there. I'm pretty much behind the scenes, but I'm just like a silent investor in Pudgy Penguins. But I think to your point, it is, and really one of the reasons I want to invest in it too is because I think it is one of those pieces of IP where you can look at it and you could say, oh yeah, like a lot of people could identify with that, right? Like, yeah, I could see how, like they do a good job on Instagram right now with short form content, and like a lot of people are engaging with that. And there only is a couple, in my opinion, there only is a couple pieces of IP in the space that really get it right now. And Pudgy Penguins, they understand that. They understand, how to advance their IP, what they can do with licensing and content, and how to make it fun. And yeah, I could see them definitely making the leap from just being this, Web3 NFT brand to actually something that's more mainstream. And that's where Doge Pound wants to get to. I think our IP is flexible enough, and some of the stuff that we're building out now with our characters, our animations, and some of the creative teams that we have behind it. I think it's it's flexible enough where it could make that leap as well. So I think, it's maybe a decent comparison, but yeah, definitely a great example.
Yeah, no, it's interesting there because it's a community and project that I've been looking into, Pudgy Penguins, and it's interesting that you were actually involved in that, I guess, process. But yeah, Luca and the team, they seem like, I haven't ever met them, but they seem like really switched on guys, and they've obviously built and scaled e-commerce in the past, right? So were you sort of in contact with those guys prior, or did you meet through Web3 and NFTs?
I connected through, I don't think it matters if I say this story, but yeah, I got connected through the guy that actually started Divine Anarchy. Just got to know him because we were doing like whitelist spots for Divine Anarchy back out in the day. He was always connected with me, and he said, hey, like me and I didn't even know Luke at the time. I knew Luke. His name was actually Luke. Hey, we're thinking about buying Pudgy Penguins. Would you want to be involved? And then they showed me what the valuation was and how much money they were trying to raise. Well, that's all public. They raised it for $2.5 million.
Yeah.
And I put in some money. I thought it was kind of a no-brainer at the time. And yeah, they've been doing really well. Definitely doing a great job. Like you said, I think the team definitely just they get it. They understand it too. And like people are starting to realize like, oh yeah, this could be a brand that's could be more consumer-centric and mainstream. And yeah, the IP is good. And last thing I always say, I always tell this to Luca too. I don't necessarily speak to him that often, but the community of Pudgy Penguins, I remember when like it was pretty much a rug pull, right? Like Pudgy Penguins, that's why it got sold, right? Because it had all these problems, and like the previous founder just didn't really care. So people considered it a rug pull, and the project was kind of in shambles, so to speak, right? And that community was still on social media, and like their floor price and all these metrics that you could look at was still like ridiculously strong. Like nothing good was going for them, and it was ridiculously strong. So I remember thinking back then too, when with investment, like wow, if they don't have anything going for them and the floor price is still way bigger than Doge Pound and they're still more active, like just imagine if they actually get some good things going and some positive stuff going. And yeah, I think it's just been a combination of both those things together. Awesome community and strong team now. So
for sure, I think and like what you said, in terms of the fact that they get it, like they know how to speak to a Web 2 audience. Like they're really branching out outside of, I guess, crypto Twitter, right? And I think, it's like you say, it's interesting. The Instagram play, the short form content is really banging views. So yeah, no, it's great.
No, it's smart, and it's interesting. I think that's kind of how I see Doge Pound eventually becoming too. You'll have the short form content that's more relatable to a bigger audience. You just have to have that. It's got to be relatable, in our case, to dogs or dog lovers or dog owners. And then you still have, this core original group that's like your hardcore group of people that you speak to, maybe slightly different, but everyone's one big community. But you just have different levels of people and how they might interact with the brand. And it's been interesting to see. I definitely think it's a great use case of someone that's doing it correctly. It's pretty cool.
Amazing. Well, John, it's been fantastic having you. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you. No, it's great. Likewise. Honestly, it's and I wish you all the best in terms of everything that you're building with Doge Pound. And like I say, it was one of the projects which sucks me right into Web3, and here we are talking. So, pleasure. It's a pleasure to speak to you. And now's your chance to shill anything, shout out to anybody, or if there's any alpha you want to share that's coming up.
Last thing I'll say is just, that's what we're going after, everything dogs. I think it'll be fun for people to watch too, how we kind of expand the brand and change a little bit of the identity of expand on it really, what the identity of Doge Pound is. So we'll roll this out first to our existing community, our holders, and then it'll be fun to start rolling this out to other Web3 communities, and then eventually to Web2 users, a way that they can all have some sort of Doge Pound IP, interact with it. And ideally, in the end, we want, if you're holding our collectible, that it can actually help you as a pet owner, or it can help your dog in some sort of way. So that's, it's exciting for me to build out. It's going to be a challenge, right, to get it all correct on version 1, and we probably won't get it correct right away, but it's yeah, it's going to be exciting. I think it's a very, if we can get into the dog niche and really get respect there and get a lot of people using it, I think it's a big opportunity for Doge Pound. And then the things we do on the IP side, I think that's in a really good spot as well. I don't think a lot of people realize that, AMGI, which is the project behind My Pet Hooligan, we're partners with them. We work with them on a weekly basis, really good relationship with them. And then we also have the vice president of Fox. That's an advisor for us, and some other people that used to work in the Hollywood space. So the IP is in a really good spot. It's just a matter of us figuring out now, like, how do we take these characters and, bring it into bigger verticals as well. So, maybe I'll stop there. But I appreciate it as well. This is fun.
Definitely. Look, we'll definitely stay in touch. You seem like a cool guy. It's always good to connect with people who are cool in the space. So I want to stay in touch. And everybody's listening. If you haven't already, go check out the Doge Pound. Put the links below. Thank you so much, John. It's been amazing, and we'll sign out there.
Yeah, thank you as well. Take care.